A very good morning to all of you, dear children. Today we will continue with our lesson, The Gift of Magi. Other day we had seen that Della, with all her efforts, she could gather only $1.87, and it was going to be Christmas, and she wants to give a beautiful gift to her husband Jim. But Della was so much disappointed that she could not, she had not much money, and they were living in a very poor house, a rented house with no calling bell, which was not working, and there was a letter box in which no letters could get in, and the name of the husband, Mr. James Dellingham Young. There was a card in which the name was written, and it was there at the entrance of the poor old flat. Now we will go to the fifth paragraph. The Dellingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. So Dellingham, so that name was very much flourishing, and it was flung, it was to the breeze. That means there was a time of prosperity for Jim, in which the name was very much highlighted, and they were very much proud about the name Dellingham and all. They were paying $30 per week. Now they are paying only very less. Former period of prosperity, when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. So the owner of the rented house was paid $30. Then it was well furnished. Now what happened when the income was shrunk to $20? Now the income has reduced to $20, though they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming D. So now they are not thinking about Dellingham and all. Now they want to, instead of Dellingham, they want to just keep only that D there. Why? Because they have nothing to be proud about. So if you have lot of money and all, you will put Dellingham, your house name, and you will put it will be in a very flowery manner, you will write and all. But when you have no money, what to do? But when you don't have much money and all, what you will do? You will not write your name in a flowery manner and all. You will just make it very short so that others may not be able to read it and all. But whenever Mr. James Dellingham came home and reached his flat, above he was called Jim and greatly hugged by Mrs. Dellingham Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. So now the author is telling how Della, the beautiful wife of Mr. James or Jim, would welcome him. So she will go and hug him and will call Jim, not James but Jim, which was all very good. Now any wife will do like that. Not any wife, but any wife who loves. Now we will go to the sixth paragraph. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. So now our Della was weeping. Why she was weeping? Because she could not gather so much money to buy a beautiful gift for Jim. So she had only very little money. So that was the cause of her anxiety. That was the cause of her sadness. That is why she wept. She wept over her poverty and all those things. We have already seen. Now they are paying only $8. Though they worked hard, they could earn only so much. But they were a couple who were very much in love. They were loving each other so much. It is all their love that matters. Now Della finished her cry and attended her cheeks with the powder rag. So when you cry and all, your your face will be full of moisture, the tears and all. So what you will do, you will apply some powder over your face so that your face will look fresh. So when Jim comes, he should not identify that she was crying. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a grey cat walking a grey fence in a grey background. So here you see our author, O. Henry, is using the color grey. It's an imagery. So grey color means it is something not fresh. When you have a grey feeling means a very dull feeling. So as she stood by the window and looked out dully at a grey cat walking a grey fence, a grey cat walking over a grey fence in a grey background. So everything looks to be grey. That means there is nothing to be joyful about. If it was yellow, it could be a color of joy, a green joy. When it is red, it is sad, it is something like dangerous. When it is black, it is hopeless. When it is gray, it is something dissatisfying, or you are so much worried that is why you see everything in a gray color. So she is looking out like that and she is seeing everything in a grey color. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day. She is thinking, tomorrow would be a Christmas Day. And she had only $1.87 with which to buy a present, to buy Jim a present. So with that money, she has to buy a present to Jim. And it will be very less to buy a beautiful gift. You will not get a good gift for that money. That was the cause of her sadness. She had been saving every penny she could for months with this result. So with a lot of hard work only, with a lot of planning, she could gather only so much. $20 a week does not go far. So only $20 you get for a week, and you have to pay the rent, you have to see you have to buy grocery and everything, and it is not enough. You will suffer. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. So they always are, the expenses, whether it is a rich family or a poor family, how much you can reduce your expenses. There is a limit. So she is saying that the expenses were more than what they had earned per week. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. So though she tried all the year to gather some money, she could gather only so much to buy a beautiful gift to her beautiful husband Jim. Her Jim means her only husband. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him. Many a happy hour, it is a usage. So for hours she planned, she spent planning, she went on planning what to buy, what gift I should buy. She was planning, but she had only a limited money in her hand. Something fine and rare and sterling, something just a little bit near to being worthy to be honor of being owned by Jim. So I should buy something worthy, something nice I should buy. That was the idea of our Della. It should not degrade his honor. Although she was very poor, she had only little money, she had this in her mind. When I buy some gift, it should be worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. So when Jim sees this gift, he should feel honored. So that is what she thinks by sitting back. Now we will go on to paragraph number 7. There was a pier glass between the window of the room So between the windows of the room there was a pier glass to which you look and you see your reflection. A big mirror is called pier glass. Perhaps you have seen a pier glass in a $8 flat. It should be a very low cost, very shabby looking, or it may not be a rich elegant mirror. It will be a poor mirror which doesn't show a good image of yourself. A very thin and very agile person may, by observing his reflection in a rapid sequence of longitudinal strips, obtain a fairly accurate conception of his looks. So it is just a description of the image that is being seen in that particular long mirror. By observing the reflection in a rapid sequence of longitudinal strips. So longitudinal and that lengthwise, it's sometimes though if you are a fat person, in some mirror you will look very thin because of the convex, concave, that kind of when it is a cheap mirror, it doesn't show you a good image. But you see, obtain a fairly accurate conception of his looks. So it's really very difficult to if it is a cheap mirror, if the mirror is not good, if it is a mirror that has got some problem, that will be reflected in your image also. So this particular mirror was one such, the poor mirror. Della, being slender, had mastered the art. Sometimes if you are very thin, you will look very fat. If you are very fat, you will look very thin. So this our Della was very slender. Slender means very thin, kind of lean and beautiful. So she had mastered the art, how to look to the mirror and shape herself. She had mastered over it. Suddenly whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly. So, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. So, by standing near the mirror, what she did, her face was dull, but her eyes were shining brightly, and but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Within 20 seconds, the color of the face was lost rapidly. So immediately she pulled out her hair and let it fall down. So it was a beautiful hair, and it had a lot of light. Now we will move on to the 9th paragraph. Now there were two possessions of the James Dellingham Youngs, in which they both took a mighty pride. Now, James Dellingham Youngs means both of them, Mr. and Mrs. James Dellingham. Both of them, they had they had two possessions. Both of them owned both of them owned possessions each. So what were their possessions? One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. So it was passed on to Jim through the ancestry. So the grandfather of Jim gave this particular watch to Jim's father, and Jim's father gave it to Jim. So it was transferred like hereditary, through hereditary. So and the other was Della's hair. Della's hair was the beautiful possession of our Della. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hung out of the window someday to dry, just to depreciate her majesty's jewels and gifts. So the author is saying, it's all like comparisons and to appreciate the possession of Della, he is bringing the person of Queen of Sheba. In the Bible you see Queen of Sheba was a rich queen who was a friend of King Solomon, and she had a lot of possessions, she had a lot of jewelry. But the author is saying, O. Henry is saying, if this particular Queen of Sheba was living around or living near the flat of our Della, and if she happened to, what she would do, she would just put her hair out of the window. Who? Our Della. Then by seeing the hair of Della, Her Majesty, so Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. So she will think my mighty possessions are nothing in front of the beautiful hair of Della. Did you understand? Okay. So now, if Queen Sheba with all her possessions lived near the house of Della, by seeing the hair of Della through the window of the flat of Della, by seeing that particular hair falling through the window glass or window windows, our Queen of Sheba would depreciate all her jewels, because her hair is precious than, beautiful than all other jewels. That means so beautiful was her hair. Only to say that he has brought this imagery. Had King Solomon being the janitor with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. So janitor means a doorkeeper. So if King Solomon, being the janitor with all his treasures piled up in the basement, so in the basement, if he had piled up, King Solomon is a rich king, we see in the Bible. So King Solomon with all his riches sitting in front of that basement, but if he had seen the golden watch of Jim, he would have turned envious towards the watch of Jim, because the watch of Jim was so precious, so beautiful than any of the treasures of King Solomon. Did you understand that? So this is how our Henry describes the beauty, the preciousness, the quality of the possessions of his characters. So hope you have understood this portion. Now this lesson is very, very important as regards to the annotations. So you should read it carefully and learn all the dialogues and try to understand who has said it. Dear students, I am extremely happy some of you have already begun to write copy and all. So don't forget, every day you should write copy, and you must you must be remembering how to write it, in a slanting way, and be strict with regard to studies. Do the homework, write down the notebook. So once you come to the school, get prepared with all the assignments. I have given you, I think, almost all the topics. So try to do all the 8 assignments and write down the note of the lessons that are over. I will take the grammar later because it needs time. We will continue with our lesson maybe day after tomorrow. Meanwhile, you try to read the text 2-3 times. I told you that there will be many annotations from this lesson. You can expect anything. Okay, wish you everything best. Have a good day.